সদায় দেৰিকে হৈছে কিয় বহুতেতো চাইকেল লৈ আহে তোৰহে দেৰি হৈছে কিয় মানে তোক মই মন কৰিছো তোৰ লাহে লাহে পঢ়াৰ প্ৰতি আগ্ৰহ নাইকিয়া হৈছে হয় তো চুলিবিলাক এইবিলাক কি কৈ আহিছ
The Children of God, this was such a fantastic film. I thought that the cinematography was absolutely beautiful. The storytelling was incredible. And I just think it's so special that we're able to see this story in a different cultural context. And I think a lot of times when we think of countries like outside of the Western world, that they're not as progressive, they're more conservative, they're less, open to other types of gender expressions and sexual identities and all of that. And for me, I was like so delighted and refreshed to see that there was this young student who was struggling and being bullied, and like that scene with their teacher was so hard to watch and so unbelievable, but they ended up getting justice in the end. The teacher was suspended or fired. They were able to speak to their principal, and their principal provided resources and groups and contacts and support. And I was just like, slow clap, so impressive. And I think that I had a different assumption on like how this story would play out, and I was like very pleasantly surprised, and just getting to see the activism that was happening there and the different like group supports and work and celebration that's being done, and like the one-on-one connection that they were able to have with this other friend that they were introduced to it was so heartwarming. And this film just really made my heart happy in so many different ways, and I'm happy that our main character was able to take that horrible traumatic incident and use it to better themselves, but also like tell their story to others and be the change that they want to see. So it went from like participating in the activism to being a leader in it. And it was just such a beautiful story arc and character arc of like where they started and where they ended up. I loved this so much.
I really like The Children of God. I thought the cinematography was chef's kiss. Excellent. Really great composition, really great lighting. The shots were very aesthetically pleasing to look at, and I also liked the subject matter. Like I never really even thought about what it is like to be in the LGBT community in this like type of culture, in this in this country or whatever. Like I've always thought about it in the American context. So this film really opened my eyes to like what the people in that community and this culture goes through, and like how rough it is. So as far as bringing light to an issue, this film definitely did that in a tasteful way. So really well done. Good job.
Children of God. The filmmakers did a really good job with this. The cinematography was beautiful. The music was great. This opened and it immediately grabbed your attention and it took you on a journey. I mean, the opener was so very intense. That kind of humiliation is hard to watch, but kudos to the filmmakers for hooking you right from the very beginning, because you want to find out what happens to them. And going through this story and seeing how they become much more comfortable in their own skin, getting a mentor, and it just really nails the point home that in every corner of the world, we have to be so much more open to the fact that love is love. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what we look like. It doesn't matter what our race is. And this film did that so brilliantly in just making a point. So thank you. Yeah, nice job.
This film is called The Children of God. This was a very important short from India. An LGBTQ youth experiences a humiliating situation at school, but is fortunate to be introduced to another LGBTQ youth and form a loving relationship and join supportive groups and events and find acceptance. I love the development of the characters, especially the lead. The shots of the countryside were also so lovely, lots of beautiful drone work. And the flute music was gorgeous. Great job. The Children of God. Check it out.
This film had some gorgeous cinematography in it. The area they live in is quite beautiful, which probably led to that. The story itself begins very inflammatory, because I know from the Western standpoint, if I'd learned my kid was made to strip in a class where she's already being bullied, I would have that teacher's head. Well, I guess in this culture, it's where they live, it's normal. Guess it's glad that they don't live in one that executes LGBT people, but still the sorrow that the girl feels just for bullying, where you're bullied out of school. And the teacher brought it on herself, telling her to strip. There's nothing wrong from a Western standpoint with a tomboy, which is what this girl was, or a feminized man. There's who they are. I can't imagine being in her shoes, where you're accused of being a boy just for wearing pants. Because I know I can go with pants, or I can personally go with dresses. I have probably the equal amount of both. To live in a culture where you're accused of not really being who you are because of the way you dress is unfathomable to those of us in Western cultures. This film brings about a lot of issues, considering that the way you dress is what your gender is, the way you behave, the way you cut your hair. All this stuff is stuff that those of us in Western cultures don't really think about much. But I can see through this film that the impact it makes to show that other countries are still struggling with this. And it's what makes it controversial at the same time, while trying to fight for LGBT rights.
This was a really smartly done film. Great title that really makes a lot of sense, because we hear these kind of gender identity struggle slash coming of age stories as an audience here, at least in North America. We see it a lot with people that are, indigenous to here. So, Children of God does a great job at exploring the same universal issue in on the other side of the planet, which is fantastic. And I think we could use a lot more of exploring this story in other parts of the world, because it really is a universal issue. So I loved it for that. But all that aside, it's just a really well done film. The writing's great, the performances are great, great direction, some beautiful landscapes, really, really strongly done. Just good cinematography. It had all the trappings of a great film, and on top of that, I got to experience a story, go along with this character, in a culture that I don't see a lot of in the film that I'm exposed to over here. So for me, as an audience here in North America, I thought it was fantastic, and just fresh that way. Really, it really just had me just sympathizing with our character there all the way through. So it's just really compelling, well done. I just really enjoyed it.
The Children of God, I think, is a very touching portrait of a queer person discovering themselves. It opens with this really horrific scene where This girl's forced to like strip and expose genitals in front of her class. Like a teacher makes her do it just because they can't tell whether she's a boy or a girl. You know, like the sheer unbelievable horror is like captured really, really palpably and really intensely. You know, it's incredibly hard to watch, and you have to imagine it must be 1,000 times harder to have experienced. It's just horrible. But then, you know, it very quickly kind of balances this out by having, you know, the principal step in, and he's very sort of caring, understanding, and sends her to meet a former student who's, you know, really kind of helpful in helping this girl understand what's going on with her and guiding her into the community, which, you know, kind of it acts as a corrective, you know, kind of overpowers like the hate and the violence and the intolerance, you know, the love and understanding, which is really powerful. It's great to see, you know. And then when you have these scenes of her meeting this other student and forming this bond, you know, that comes across really powerfully. Like it's a real refuge and it's a real sort of lifesaver. You know, and these scenes are kind of shot, they're surrounded by these shots of like really luscious, really gorgeous, like forests and nature and stuff. And it kind of suggests visually this idea that like queerness itself is both natural and beautiful, which I think is, you know, really kind of effective, emotive, subtle, genuinely great filmmaking.